Panic has begun to grip the Caribbean region following a series of military moves by the United States in recent weeks. The U.S. Navy's battle group is now moving ever closer to Venezuelan waters, sending a strong signal that Washington is ready to conduct large-scale operations in the region. The presence of destroyers, amphibious assault ships, and even precision strikes against naval targets, suspected of being linked to drug cartels, has sparked a military escalation that cannot be ignored. The international community is now turning its attention to the Caribbean Sea, as the situation there has the potential to open a new chapter in global military dynamics. In mid-August, the United States began deploying 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers to the Caribbean. These ships are the USS Gravely, USS Jason Dunham, and USS Sampson. Each is a destroyer equipped with the Aegis defense system, capable of launching long-range missiles and controlling anti-air, anti-ship, and anti-submarine warfare. The presence of these 3 ships is enough to change the maritime power landscape around Venezuela, as each ship carries hundreds of Tomahawk and Standard missiles, capable of reaching targets hundreds of kilometers away. With their position approaching international waters near Venezuela, the military message sent was clear. The United States was ready to press with full force. Furthermore, the fleet was reinforced by sending a large amphibious unit. The helicopter carrier USS Iwo Jima, accompanied by a San Antonio-class dock transport, joined the operation. With a total of more than 4,000 United States Navy and Marine personnel currently in the region, the scale of this deployment far exceeds a routine patrol. Such amphibious forces are typically used for landing operations, forward troop deployments, or large-scale evacuations. The fact that these ships approached approximately 550 kilometers from the Venezuelan coast indicated the seriousness of the operation being undertaken. This move was not merely a show of force. In early September, the United States Navy had already taken concrete action on the ground. A speedboat suspected of being affiliated with the Tren de Aragua drug cartel was targeted in a precision strike in the Caribbean Sea. The attack reportedly killed all 11 people on board. The Pentagon stated that the operation was part of an effort to disrupt drug trafficking routes originating in Venezuela and spreading to various countries in the region. Therefore, the deployment of U.S. warships was not merely a preventative measure, but also involved the direct use of military force in international waters. The presence of U.S. destroyers near Venezuela immediately elicited a strong response from the Caracas military. In early September, on the 4th and 5th, 2 Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets flew over the USS Jason Dunham, which was operating in international waters. The Pentagon called this action highly provocative and potentially endangered the safety of the ship's crew and pilots. The incident heightened tensions in the region, recalling Cold War-era incidents when U.S. warships directly encountered aircraft or vessels from other nations. Although no firefights occurred, the fact that Venezuelan fighter jets dared to fly over U.S. destroyers indicated that the situation was already at a very tense point. The U.S. Department of Defense subsequently issued a stern warning to Venezuela not to obstruct ongoing maritime operations. Washington asserts that its warships are operating in international waters under a counter-narcotics mandate. However, from a military perspective, the presence of a large fleet complete with destroyers and amphibious assault ships is certainly more than a routine operation. Many observers believe that such deployments are rarely undertaken except to exert direct pressure on a specific country. The fact that Venezuela is at the center of these warship movements has placed the country in the global spotlight. In addition to the aerial incident involving Venezuelan fighter jets, naval operations in the Caribbean have also intensified. U.S. patrol vessels have been reported several times to have shadowed the waters near Venezuela's exclusive economic zone. This has prompted a retaliatory deployment of Venezuela's own military patrol vessels, despite clearly lagging far behind the United States fleet in capability. The Venezuelan Navy is known to possess only a handful of frigates and light patrol vessels, while facing them are Aegis-class destroyers with the world's most advanced weapons systems. This disparity raises concerns that in the event of a direct incident, Venezuela would be in a much more vulnerable position. The situation in the Caribbean Sea now resembles a battlefield of escalating military tensions. On the one hand, the United States continues its counter-narcotics operations with considerable force. On the other hand, Venezuela views these actions as a threat to its sovereignty. However, from a purely military perspective, developments in recent weeks clearly demonstrate that the scale of the deployment has gone beyond the usual patrol pattern. 3 modern destroyers, an amphibious aircraft carrier, support ships, and thousands of combat-ready Marines is no small force configuration. Such deployments are only undertaken when there is a dire strategic need. The panic described in many reports is not without reason. The presence of large warships near a country's territory always triggers a recalculation of national defense. Venezuela must now deploy all its military capabilities to monitor the movements of the U.S. fleet. Air defense radars, fighter jets, and even its naval forces are on constant alert. However, with a military capability far smaller than that of the United States, this readiness is more defensive than offensive. Tensions are rising not only because of the threat of combat, but also because of the risk of miscalculation on the ground that could trigger an unexpected clash. In an international military context, this situation is significant. Over the past few decades, the Caribbean Sea has been a frequent arena for U.S. Navy operations. However, large-scale deployments like this are rare, especially with direct involvement in attacks on vessels suspected of cartel links. This move marks a shift in strategy, where the United States is not hesitant to use high-level combat power to combat transnational crime. If these operations continue, the possibility of a clash with Venezuela increases, given that the country is a major transit point for drug trafficking routes in the region. For military observers, this is a classic illustration of how naval power is used as a primary instrument of defense and security policy. Destroyers with advanced weapon systems, amphibious aircraft carriers with attack helicopters and combat-ready Marines, plus air patrols from U.S. fighter jets, are all now engaged in a single, complementary operation. This deployment of force is not merely a political message, but a clear demonstration that the U.S. Navy remains in full control of the Caribbean region. Venezuela's strong reaction is just one consequence of the presence of such a large battle fleet near its territory. To date, the situation in Caribbean waters remains tense. U.S. warships remain operational, Venezuelan fighter jets continue to patrol the skies, and both countries' patrol vessels monitor each other.